the cell. All right, everyone, we're going to begin talking about cells and how they assist in living organisms. All right, so a long time ago, the discovery of cells is accredited to a couple different scientists. The first scientist we're going to speak about is Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke, he was doing experiments with cork, like if you have cork, like a cork board that you post things on, or like the top of a wine bottle has a cork. I think he actually took small slices of corks, and looked at them under a microscope. And when you look at it under a microscope, you can see that they are little tiny, to him they look like little tiny rooms, like the monks used to study in, little tiny rooms, and he called those cells, like the little small cells that monks used to study and pray in monasteries. So that's why he kind of coined the name cells based upon how those corks looked. And then later on, Antoine von Leeuwenhoek, he also used another microscope and noticed little cells moving around, and he said that they looked like little animals, and he called them animalcules. All right, so we pretty much kind of give Robert Hooke the credit for discovering or using the term cells. All right, we have this thing called the cell theory. You may have heard of it before. So the development of the cell theory, it was more like a compilation of work that pretty much three scientists did. The first scientist we're going to talk about is Matthias Schleiden. He pretty much added to the cell theory. Throughout his research, he found out that all plant parts are made of cells. So basically saying that all plants are made of cells. All right, and then, somewhere else, Theodor Schwann was conducting research also, about this new cell thing. And he found out that all animal tissues are composed of cells as well. So first they only thought, that plants were composed of cells, and then later on they find out that animals are composed of cells as well. And then the third gentleman, Rudolph Virchow, he pretty much discovered that cells must arise from pre-existing cells. So he's basically saying that all cells have to come from another living thing, another cell. All right, and in these pictures right here, you can kind of see, we're going to talk about mitosis and meiosis a little later, but in these pictures right here, how you see this cell kind of separating, one going to the left side, one part of the cell going to the right side, and then eventually they make two separate cells down here. Okay, so that's where he got, he thought that cells must arise from pre-existing cells. All right, so all three of those gentlemen, Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolph Virchow, gave pretty much birth to the cell theory, which states there's three parts to it. Number one, all organisms are composed of one or more cells. Number two, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Number three, all cells are produced from other cells. And that's the cell theory. All right, so this cell theory that they came up with, they did all this work, all this research, and it has actually helped us a lot, even in our current day still. It says basically the discoveries and the truths about cells have helped us in discovering and working with different diseases, health and medical research, and cures for AIDS, trying to find cures for AIDS, cancers, and the different vaccines that we have now. When you go and get a flu shot, that's a vaccine. Okay. When you go get, your shots for measles and mumps and things like that, those are vaccines. Cloning, stem cell research, there's a lot of other things that this cell theory, the basic knowledge of the cell has helped us, work with and helped us discover. All right, so you might ask, okay, well, what is a cell? All right, technically a cell, it's a small compartment that holds all the biological equipment necessary to keep an organism alive. Okay, so it's the basic unit of life. The cell is the basic unit of life. Cells, obviously, we talked about this earlier, that they have a structure and a function. When we talked about the characteristics of life, we talked about how all living things are organized, meaning they have structures that have specific functions. So the cell structure, the structure actually is what it is made of and how the parts are put together. Okay, so what it's made of and how the parts are put together. The function is the processes that enable organisms to stay alive and reproduce. Okay, kind of like the actual structure's job. And if you look over here, these are different types of cells under a microscope. So you can see the little small different cells in this one, and they're not these colors. These are slides that were stained, with some kind of stain, some kind of coloring, so you could see the definition and in between all the different types of cells. Okay, so they're not naturally these colors in your bodies. All right, there are two main types of cells, all right, that we're going to discuss right now. We're going to pretty much kind of compare and contrast these two different types of cells. You have on the left side prokaryotic cells. That's prokaryotic cells. And then on the right side you have a eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell. Make sure you get used to saying these words, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. All right, so on the left, it's a very simple basic cell where they have, some basic structures like cell membranes, cytoplasm, things like that. And then on the right, you have a more complex cell. If you look at it, there's a lot more parts. Okay, it looks more complex. So we'll go ahead and move on. So like a good example of a prokaryotic cell on the left is like a bacteria cell, a bacterial cell, okay? And good examples of the eukaryotic cells on the right are plants and animal cells. All right, key things about prokaryotic cells. These are some key things that you want to remember about prokaryotic cells. So prokaryotic cells, they have no nucleus. They have no nucleus. You may not know what a nucleus is as of yet, but you will soon. So they have no nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles, meaning like but they do have cytoplasm and cell membrane. I stated that earlier, but they have no membrane-bound organelles. They're all unicellular, which means they're only made of one cell. They're very simple cells, they're not complex. And an example, like I said earlier, are bacterial cells. Okay, and just an extra piece of information: bacterial cells, they do have DNA, but they have circular DNA, and it's not located in the nucleus. It's just free floating in the cytoplasm. Okay. Key things about eukaryotic cells. Okay, it's kind of like the opposite. The eukaryotic cell, they're more complex. They have a nucleus. They also have the membrane-bound organelles. These ones, they can be unicellular or multicellular, and they are very complex cells. You saw in the picture earlier that, there's more things going on in the eukaryotic cell than there are in the bacteria cell, in the prokaryotic cell. And again, the examples of the eukaryotic cells, you have plant cells and animal cells. These have DNA as well, but the DNA is found in the nucleus. All right, so we're going to talk about those two examples that I gave you of the eukaryotic cells. So there are two types of eukaryotic cells. One are the plant cells. Okay, the plant cells have cell walls, chloroplast, and large central vacuoles. And by central, I mean they're located in the middle of the cell. Okay, so those three key things about plant cells. They have cell walls, chloroplast, which are different types of organelles we'll talk about in a little bit, and large central vacuoles. All right, they have no lysosomes. That's another organelle. They do not have any lysosomes. All right, so those are some characteristics about the plant cell. Remember, this is just a brief introduction, so you can definitely distinguish between plants and animal cells. All right, so the animal cells have lysosomes. They have small vacuoles not located in the center of the cell. Okay, and they make some animal cells don't even have vacuoles, but if they do have vacuoles, they have small vacuoles, and they are not located in the center of the cell. Honestly, some animal cells even have multiple vacuoles, but they are all small. Okay, and some don't have any at all. They have no cell wall and no chloroplast. So you can kind of compare the difference between the plant cells and the animal cells. There are certain things that are only located in the animal cell And you can also see that there are certain things that are only located in a plant cell. Just another hint to help you distinguish between the two.